I go into anything here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Hold on, let me click this real quick here. Got it. There was a Zoom message popping up. Thank you for inviting me. It is honestly a privilege to speak to people. It's one thing to be able to have the opportunity to do the work, to show the work, but it's another thing to be listened to and share your stories with an audience. And so I hope that through the stories, through some of my experience, that maybe you can gather some tips and tricks here and there, but ultimately I hope you leave inspired. That would be my goal. And I hope the one theme that I think you'll keeps popping up in these is someone said this one time after a presentation I made, and it was love takes risks. And I hope you remember that. No matter what that risk is, mine's usually hanging off of a cliff, but that doesn't mean that needs to be yours. It could be whatever. And the bottom line is that you're putting yourself out there. You're taking a risk to do something good for this world. And so I hope that reoccurring theme kind of lands with you guys tonight and through these stories. So let's get going. All right, the agenda. In the beginning, this is a brief history of me. I'm not going to spend that long on it, but pretty much just kind of how I grew up, how I got into photography and the arts in general. I will weave it all into photography eventually. Music, I know it's a photography presentation, but music is where it started for me. And again, that's kind of how it got me to photography. Spiritual awakening, kind of when everything changed in my life. I woke up one day and all of a sudden life had meaning. And that led into the books for me and the stories behind the photos. We'll spend most of the time on that section. And then ultimately, I'm going to talk a little bit about the business side at the end of things. I'm not an expert in that, but I will share my experience with you guys, and hopefully you can get some tips out of that. But the most important takeaway for me is have a mission statement, have a personal mission statement, something that drives you, that defines your work, and that helps keep the right boundaries around what you say yes to, what you say no to. And that's always kind of helped me in guiding my work. So, all right, let's get going. That didn't work. Okay, all right, here we go. Okay, there we go. All right, in the beginning, kind of ominous, isn't it? Okay, all right, Josh in a nutshell. We have years 1 through 10. I was a pretty bad student in school. I had a big family. I was always outside, and I was an avid Pog player. Hey, does anybody remember Pogs? Yeah. Oh, sorry. You good? It's okay. I can make it through. Thanks. All right. Whoa, sorry, mouth almost fell down. Anyway, years 11 through 15. Actually, back on the years 1 through 10, the bad student, like I was so bad, like not like behavior wise. I just didn't care much about academics. And I remember in 5th grade, if you know this lady, like I have no like hard feelings toward her. Her name was Mrs. Dorothy. She was my 5th grade teacher. I loved her. She was great. Are you here, Mrs. Dorothy? I just want to make sure. But she gave me an F- on one of my papers, a science book. And I remember thinking, like, even I knew, like, I thought F was the lowest. Like, I didn't know you could have a minus after that one. So it's kind of a wake-up call, kind of. So years 11 through 15, I still was kind of a bad student. We had a big family. And I say that because my mom had remarried. So she had 3 of us, and then with my dad. And then she married my stepdad, who brought in 2 of his own. And then they had a kid together. We were the Brady Bunch. And it was, for the most part, pretty good. You know, we fought a lot, but I think it toughened us all up in life. But we were always outside. And I say that, like, anybody grow up in Yucaipa, like, there wasn't a whole lot to do. Like, we had empty fields, and that was like our playground, right? We'd go out looking for snakes, and sometimes we found some. Sometimes they found us. And, like, it wasn't like Redlands, right? You had the movie theaters down here. What was it? Was it Rainbow? Was that a theater here, right? Yeah. I remember that place. But I'm very thankful for that, always kind of being outside and coming up with games that my friends and I just kind of made up on our own, or family. I think that kind of helped, looking back, kind of define the photographer I kind of became eventually. So I took up skateboarding. I was terrible. We'll just leave it at that. But I became a musician, and my stepdad played in a couple rock bands, and he brought a guitar. Well, he brought a bunch of stuff into the house, but he brought a Gibson the Paul. It was kind of like a Les Paul. You may be familiar with that. And I just at 10 years old, I picked it up. I never put it down. Still haven't put it down. And they signed me up for lessons right away. And at that point, it was the first time I felt like I had connected with something in life. I would like I talk about the bad student stuff like that, but this time I finally began to work towards something. I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed creating music, sound, all of it, playing in bands, and so that began to pour over into other things. I became a better student. Years 11 or 15 through 39, I just ran out of room on the slide, so I had to increase the year span there. I became a husband, not at 15, or a father at 15, but I was in my 20s. I have a bigger family now, still always outside. And overall, I make a living at being a creative professional, which I'm very thankful for in all of those facets, musician, photographer, and designer. And a lot of it had to do with basically what I kind of just told you. So let's move on to the musician part of it. If I can get this next slide. There we go. So things changed when music came into the house. I gained a confidence. My imagination kind of felt like it was set free a little bit. I could create with no judgment. I could just sit in my room and play. And I had a drive, right? I mean, I didn't know what it all meant, but I just knew I enjoyed doing it. And so but this gave me that sort of, I guess, swagger in my step. You say, what is that? I said girls looked at me different. They didn't. They were never really that interested. But I loved it. I connected with it, and that began to pour over into other things. And ultimately, college is where I became a music major. Any music majors in here? Hey, all right. So if you're a music major, you inevitably encounter J.S. Bach. No matter what your instrument is, he is music theory. And I won't go too far down this path. It's kind of a rabbit trail, so I'll keep it short. But essentially, you learn about things like counterpoint. You can look these terms up. Harmonic movements. It all started with Bach. And I began to play and perform a lot of his music on classical guitar. And as I was playing, like many musicians, we feel what we play. And it was no different with me. I began to feel just Bach's music, this sort of deeper, it had depth to it. And so ultimately you end up learning about the guy a little bit. And one of the quotes I took away from him that kind of just redefined my path one day was the aim and final reason of all music should be none else but the glory of God and refreshing the soul. I'm not here to preach at you. Whatever you believe, it's not my business, but I'm just telling you that as being an authentic human being who lived this experience. And all those things I mentioned, confidence, imagination, drive, it was now just dripping with purpose for me. I felt like there was just this whole different meaning to life, and that segued into the book for me, which and the photography in general. I'll talk about those both in a minute. I do want to kind of share a funny story. So we were doing a master class at USC. A master class is where you have like a maestro show up. In this case, it was Pepe Romero, who's a world-renowned classical guitar player, and you play for him. So you have like an audience, and you play for him or her, whoever it might be, and they critique you in front of everybody. It's a great time. But it's pretty fun for the most part. So it's super nerve-wracking, and I remember this guy getting up to play one of a Bach piece. It was his Prelude, Fugue, and Allegro, and he played the Prelude, so he plays it through, and he was a great player. And Pepe says, and then you play it again, right? So then you play it once, and people clap, and then you play it again, and then the instructor will stop you. Okay, stop right there. And you got to pick it up in the middle somewhere. Yeah, I'm having PTSD. Sorry, but like, so, but the idea was this kid was like 5 times he went to go start the piece again. So Pepe would say, "Okay, go ahead and start it," and the kid would yell, and stop. He'd do it again. He'd do it, and this went on about 5 times. Finally, the guy kid was just like, I don't know what you want, and he has like 50 people looking at him. And Pepe says, I'll do my best Pepe Romero accent. This is probably going to sound nothing like him, but he was like, what are you playing? And he was like, I'm playing the Bach Prelude, Fugue, and Allegro. Yes. Before you even play your first note, you need to feel the Spirit of God enter your body, then play. And I don't know what this kid believed or what. And he goes in and he's like, "Oh my gosh, like what did this guy just tell me?" And I remember he just kind of shut his eyes for like 5 seconds and then started playing. I don't know if he said a prayer or if he was just like, "Oh my God, get me out of here." But and then Pepe, oh, yes, that's it. And so uh, the point is, with cameras, with music, whatever you're doing, technique doesn't get you all the way there, no matter what your medium is. You got to have deeper, something that goes beyond yourself, whether that's the same as this, whether it's something different, just something that is greater than you. So that's the point I want to make here. And that'll segue into the books. The books. There they are. I published 2 books. One was It Was Good, 10 Years in the High Sierra. We'll talk about that one first. That was my first publishing. These are both self-published. Um, the 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 world as I remember it is about of our local landscape. That one just came out this year. It Was Good has been out for a few years now, and it has won 2 international awards. So very thankful for that. One from the Banff Book and Film Festival, and then one from the International Photography Awards. So it's been awesome. But these allowed me to expound on the photographs. The photographs themselves, you look at them, wow, that's beautiful, right? But for me, it was like my favorite photographs aren't it's not the actual shot that gets me. It's the story behind it that always got me. And so I began to photograph that way. Now, I think Russ was just mentioning, like, hopefully you become a better photographer, if you've been doing it for 20 years than you were in year one. And when you put a book together, you see your gaps. You're like, oh, if I only would have like shot some of this other stuff and not been so concerned with this one image, where you're trying to tell a story through things. So that kind of was an evolutionary process for me, learning that, supporting imagery. So things like that. I'm going to talk to someone about that a little bit. I'm going to give you some backstories of things. Hopefully they'll be entertaining. They were when we lived them. One of the guys is here tonight who lived a lot of that with me, Ben. Say hi, Ben. And he's here to fact check me. So, I can't get away with too much. All right. So we're going to start with the Sierra book. It Was Good. This is a 350-page coffee table book. You can check them out over here. Just flip through them. No pressure to buy them. Just look at them. I have them for sale here if you guys want. But again, you just no pressure. Just enjoy them. Let's start with this. So I'm going to start with the cover image. I never know how this looks on the other monitors. Hopefully it's not like too saturated in the foreground. I can't tell from here, but it looks good on the screen right here. But this was the cover image for the Sierra book, and I want to talk a little bit about it. This was my first year, 2011, really backpacking, and it was a really heavy snow year in the Sierra, and I had zero experience backpacking. I dove in head first. I was like, all right, let's just do this. So this is along the John Muir Trail. I did half of it the first year. So we did about what is that, like 150 miles or something like that, and we did it in about 10. We did 10 days. So you can do the math there. Trekking through snow most of the day. It's a lot of fun. And we didn't see much of anybody on there, partly because of the conditions you're seeing right here. It just wasn't that inviting. But this was day 9 and our penultimate day. I just wanted to use that word, but the second to last day. And we ended up, this is on a place called Muir Pass. And there's a shelter up there. We had gotten ourselves into a thunderstorm that day, and we had these hail like the size of golf balls just falling on us, lightning striking everywhere. Like many other days on that trip, it kind of felt like this could be our last, not just on the trip, but just in general. And so we, dealing with this anxiety all the time, this burden the whole time. To top it off, I know, like, I don't know, maybe this is not appropriate to say, so sorry, but I was so beat up, like I was peeing blood like for like the last week on this, and I hadn't had a bath in 9 days, and I did not smell good. I was just like, I remember like looking to the heavens and just being like, what am I doing? And then this happened. The storm had cleared. We were in the hut with some other people. Finally, like some other people that, like, I think they know what they're doing, and like I was like, yes. because we clearly didn't. And he was like a Navy SEAL guy. And so him and his wife were there, and he was like, "Yeah, yeah, just come on in. We'll get through this." I'm like, oh, "Gosh, you have no idea how thankful I am for this." But storm cleared, and we got this sunset. I went out and photographed it. I was so tired, and you're not supposed to stay the night in Muir Hut, but we did anyway. And but this was the first moment that finally, like, fear wasn't like gripping me at the time. The whole 9 days before that, it was just this like, we got to go over that thing. Like, are you kidding me? I can't do that. And I ended up doing it somehow. Um, so 9 days of pulling through difficulties, just personal challenges I never thought I would get through. Very deep relationships with friends at that point. You're going through all this stuff together. It kind of culminated to this moment. And that moment represented a whole lot of hope to me. And it ultimately became kind of the impetus for the next following 10 years in those mountains. I don't think if this would have happened, I probably would have been like, yeah, that's just not for me. I'm done. So more to it than meets the eye. And it ultimately became the cover. And it's not like a very technical shot. I shot everything like f/22 back then, because like I was like, well, everything comes in focus. I didn't realize, I didn't know what diffraction was, or like how it wouldn't be that sharp, at f/22, things like that. I didn't really care, but the moment itself meant enough to me to put it on the cover. So another story was, and you're going to find a common theme in these, is usually bad weather involved. Have you guys everyone done Mount Whitney? Anyone done that? Yeah, I have. All right. So this is Ben and I were finishing up the section of the John Muir Trail, and Mount Whitney is actually, it's over there. This is Keeler Needle. And we had summited. It was 4:35. Oddly enough, I remember it. And we had woken up at 12 a.m. to summit Whitney at sunrise from the backside, the John Muir Trail side. And so we hit the summit, and then, of course, we find ourselves in a lightning storm at the highest place in the United States. And oh, man, we had actually taken some celebratory gummy bears with us. Like, hey, we're gonna eat these when we get to Mount Whitney. And we were so cold. We were sitting in the shelter, which is not lightning proof, and kind of like wondering, what should we do? And we're both sitting here shivering. We're eating these gummy bears. It was kind of this cool moment. But so, and there's this door swinging back and forth. If high winds, thunder, lightning, get down immediately, as the wind is just constantly like knocking it back and forth. So we decided to go ahead and head down at that point, and thankfully we made it out. We ran into a guy on the way up, and he was like, "Are you guys staying for sunrise?" We're like, "Dude, look around." And he's like, "Well, there's a shelter up there." And we're like, "It's not lightning proof." And he's like, a list of obscenities followed, and he ran with us down. Well, actually, I think he summited first, and then he came down. Yeah, we were close enough still. So, but again, good stories behind the images. That's what I really care about. The other thing is, this is Mount Whitney as well, but it's from a unique angle, right? This is from its neighboring 14,000-foot peak, Mount Russell. Ben was with me on this one too. And we were, it's a little bit more difficult to climb. You hit a knife edge eventually on Mount Russell, where it's about 1,000 feet this way and 1,000 feet this way, and you just have to hang on. So we kind of started that, and and I wanted a sunrise shot, of course, from this. So that meant we had to hit up the ridge at night. We didn't get to the exposed part till we could see, but still getting this particular view of Whitney with the right light, all of those conditions combined, becomes a very unique shot. Someone that Mount Whitney's been shot thousands of times, none quite like this. And so you don't have to go do the East Ridge to find a unique shot. But the point I'm getting at is figure out a different way to tell that story of that mountain, or that whatever you're photographing. Photograph it different than someone else did, and make it your own. Sorry, let me go. And then these are the other sides of that. So supporting images. I wanted to kind of get to this. This is Lake Teleño. It was kind of frozen over. This is on the other side of Mount Russell. It's the highest named lake in the United States. So that's just what it is. But it was really cool looking. And so I enjoyed the view. And then this guy, this was a part of a different mountain, but he was coming down this snow patch, right? And incorporating humans in your landscape stuff is tricky to do. You don't want to become the focus, but at the same time, you want them to support the kind of landscape around you. And oftentimes you can do that through scale. So this guy doesn't even know I took his picture. I had the 400 millimeter on. and we're just like shooting him as he's coming down this snow patch, but he brings this scale to this like whole whiteout of a patch, right? If the human wasn't there, like, what are you showing me this picture for? So the other part of these adventures is these are more supporting images. Oftentimes we cross streams to get to these places. We're taking our shoes off, you name it, just to get through water and wade through all that stuff. The night shot is kind of, I think, very much telling of all the photography that I've done, right? Like, this is the story. All of those sunrise shots, the sunset shots, it either starts or ends with a night hike out. So at some point you got to get in the dark and go for it. And this is my friend Jared, who I had him, hey, can you just stay still for 30 seconds while I take this shot? And he was kind enough to do it. But I love it because, man, hiking under the Milky Way, under the stars, it's a little scary, especially when you're by yourself. But it also fills you with wonder and inspiration at the same time. For when sunrise or sunset finally hits, you're good to go. But that's a storytelling shot of pretty much the beginning or ending of every shot I've gotten under the stars. Have any of you guys been to the Firefall in Yosemite, Horsetail Falls? Yeah. So I've shot it a few times. This one actually won an award, I think in 2023. But I did not shoot it during like the height of the, where you have that 2-week window in February to go shoot it. I've shot it there a number of times and I'll get to those shots next, but this one was actually a little bit later, like a couple weeks after that window. So the light's not as intense. It won't go as low. You're not going to get that like red line down, but your water flow is often a lot better, especially if temperatures warm up a little bit, and honestly creates an even, I think, a more engaging shot. And so I shot this just from the campground, the Horsetail Fall campground. I was the only photographer around doing it. I was just missing out. So I'm down for like meeting with everybody and doing all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, if you can find another way to do it that way. So, all right, next shot of Horsetail Falls. Which is this one? All right. Was it in the way? My bad. All right. I had climbed up the face of El Cap a little bit, and got right next to Horsetail Falls and decided to shoot it while being on the face of the rock itself. And I had never seen anybody try that shot. It didn't turn out as good as I had hoped, with the light hitting this side of the rock so much, this side of the rock so much. It didn't really give it that lava-like feel until you see it kind of hit lower down where you get it. And the conditions, the supporting shot over here is what I was dealing with all day. As soon as the wind gets a hold of these waterfalls, I was just drenched by the end of the day because I had this thing falling on me constantly. So I'm just sitting here covering my cameras up, and then I was there all day. This was I didn't think it was that dangerous of a shot until about a year ago. They had a massive rock fall right here in Yosemite. So I'm glad I wasn't there during that time. Huh? Oh, you were? Yeah. So I wasn't on the rock. So, there we go. I live to tell about it, but not the wisest decision. But then again, that's not what they pay me to be. So another shot of Horsetail Falls. Obviously, I didn't get the color that night, but there was an avalanche that had just occurred in 2017 on the south rim of the park, and so they closed it down. I took that as an invitation to go to the south rim of the park and climb up the mountain. So we did that, me and my friend JP, and got this view of Horsetail Falls that was really never there before. There were trees in the way, there was shrubbery in the way, and I just thought that was kind of cool to photograph because the conditions changed so much right then and there from an avalanche, to be kind of the first ones to photograph that angle of the waterfall. If only I got the color, but I didn't. Still got a good black and white out of it. So look for opportunities like that. I'm not saying climb an avalanche, but I am saying conditions change things, and they change the photograph. Be on the lookout for those. All right. This is back to Jared. Supporting shots, the mustache frozen. We had started this at midnight. We slept in my Jeep for like an hour. Well, for lack of a better term, slept. We wouldn't really call it that. But it was, okay, let's snowshoe to Glacier Point. This is a 20-mile day there and back. I was so tired. And during Jared's mustache kept freezing over. So I got to photograph this, right? Like that shot would have never made any sense outside of this context. So, but these shots, Jared was telling me we'd gotten to Glacier Point around 4 a.m. and it was still dark, and he's building himself a little hole. I'm like, how you doing, man? And he's like, dude, I am cold, my toes are numb, and my fingers feel like they're gonna fall off. And he had one of these like mountaineer watches that like tell you everything. He's like, it's 8 degrees outside. How do you think I'm doing? I go, dang, all right. Sorry I asked. But this is what we went through to get these shots. So that's Half Dome in the back. Jared tromping through the snow. This was sunrise on Yosemite Valley, looking the opposite way. I had never seen anybody take this shot. I thought I'm going to be the one to do it then. So eventually you get into places like Yosemite where pretty much no matter what window you choose to shoot from, you can make something of it, right? You don't have to be tunnel view to get a great shot. You can kind of go around, get windows of things, and make your own great shots. So this was one I had never seen anyone try in the wintertime, and so we went ahead and did it. So that was the sort of inspiration for there. All right, continuing with the supporting shot theme. This is Yosemite Falls. You have kind of the grand shot over there with like Half Dome in the back at sunrise, but then you have these like nuggets here, like zoomed in, where you have just backlit mist and these trees, and they become just a great image on their own, but they support what you're seeing here as well. So trying to tell the story through the details plus the grand shot that you get. Important stuff. All right, more Yosemite while we'll just stay in Yosemite. There's traffic in the valley. Have you guys ever driven in Yosemite after shooting Horsetail Falls? Like you're on the 91 freeway. And so I decided, well, that makes a nice, pretty photograph too. So this was a full moon that came up. We were going to shoot Yosemite Falls at night for some stuff, and ended up getting this great dynamic shot of the traffic down in the valley plus a full moon happening. And I think the point of this is be in the moment. This shot was not intentional, like in terms of like I didn't go up to go get this. We were going to do something else, and I just kind of like I remember taking my tripod and just pointing it down there and like clicking the shutter and letting it run for about 5 seconds or whatever it was, and getting this and thinking, wow, that was lucky. But oftentimes, and I've had to do this so many times, I go out with a plan because many times I'm miles back there and I'm back there for days doing things in the backcountry. And so you have to have a plan of some sorts, but you have to stay flexible because things don't go to plan most of the time. And so taking what you got, taking what you're given, I think is a big point in this type of photography, and making the most of it. Just have a good attitude about it, even if the conditions don't line up the way you want them to. More Yosemite Falls. This one kind of scares me. You remember that bad student thing? I still am not that bright. And sometimes I did things that just, I don't want my kids to hear that I did. And this is one of them. If you go to Yosemite Falls or any waterfall in Yosemite, there's these like guardrails in front of it. Yeah, well, I went ahead and went over the guardrails. And you can see too, right here where my feet were kind of hitting and dusting off some of the snow there. It's not like that was grip. It was like snow's pretty slippery on rock. And I just had a hold of the rail behind me. I'm shooting. So, not the brightest idea. I say that because love takes risks. And I'll leave it at that. I don't recommend you guys do that. And if you do it, have some equipment with you, the right stuff. And I will say this though, climbing as many mountains as I have, there's a point in which you feel confident about what you're doing and you can do this kind of stuff no problem. And if you start feeling insecure and things of that nature, then you just need to back off. And I've had a pretty good rule about doing that. So, and I was feeling confident during this time. So this is Mount Tyndale. And I put the shot in here. One, I think it's a great shot. This is one of our 14,000 foot peaks in California. I forget where it ranks in terms of height, but it's one of them. The lake here is where we camped. And I put it in here because it's such a serene looking moment. And not, I think like 12 hours before this, that guy and me were like running, and we dared each other to skinny dip in this lake. And so we did. And then we're running out like screaming at the top of our lungs. It was a scene, and we didn't think anyone saw us until we were hiking out the next day, and someone was like, "Hey, you guys back there screaming?" We're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Wrong way. All right, Cathedral Peak. So this is high country Yosemite, like in Tuolumne area. This was the first shot I got published by Backpacker magazine, which was really cool for me. I still have like the issue. I went to Stater Brothers, and I had won a competition with them, like a reader photo competition in 2013, and this was a shot. And they were like, I got like 5 Backpacker magazines at Stater Brothers, and the guy's like, "Whoa, like what's going on here?" I'm like, "Look at this page right here, man. That's me." Uh, I don't know if he remembers yet. So, and but I waded through about 3 thunderstorms during this whole day. I went and set up. This wasn't a huge hike for me. It was just one of those. I went and camped for like 8 hours and waited for light to hit. And I have hundreds of shots from this spot, and this one was my favorite. And ended up getting a lot of recognition through Backpacker and Outdoor Photographer magazine and competitions. So that was kind of my first real like time of being published by somebody. So it always holds kind of a special memory, and it's just an amazing area. Have you guys ever been there? This is Upper Cathedral Lake, looking at Cathedral Peak in Tuolumne Meadows. So it's about a 4.5-mile hike back there. If any of you are interested. Does anybody shoot star trails? Yeah, some of the night guys. All right. So this one has a good story behind it. This is a blend of 2 images. I like the star trails. I don't like them by themselves. It just looks too, I don't even know what you'd call it, like Twilight Zone, I guess. But I wanted them to kind of come to a point. So I took like a 5-minute exposure, then a 30-second exposure, and blended the 2 together to make it look like they were like coming to a screeching halt. And this is over Thousand Island Lake. So Banner Peak is back here. I'm pointing at the computer, but Banner Peak right there under the Milky Way. And before the shot, it was about 3 a.m. when I took this shot. Ben was with me. He was sleeping, and I had asked him, "Can you come out with me?" He said, "No, I don't get it." And so, but he said, so I'm on the little island right here. I was like over in this area when I was setting up first, and I had my tripod and I was doing this thing, and I backed up right into a bear. No joke. Bear was right there behind me. He or she gets up and starts doing this number to me. Like, wasn't growling or anything, but I was like, "Oh my gosh." And so I backed up like just real slow, and then I booked it back to camp where Ben and John, you guys were both sleeping there, and I'm just like, "Guys, you have no idea what's going on out here right now." Trying to like make subtle noises to like wake one of them up. It wouldn't work. So I went back out, and knowing where the bear was, he was actually walking around over here. By the time I took the shot, he was gone. But and so I could see him, and I'm like, okay, whatever. He doesn't want anything to do with me. I'm going to shoot this shot. This is what I came here for. Love takes risks. And so he was, I remember the bear jumped off as I'm photographing, or maybe not in this photograph, but, and he's swimming across over here. I'm like, what in the world? Like, I see his head out of the water, and he's just like, oh my gosh. But thankfully he just passed me up. So I don't know what was going on through his head, but fun story behind the shot. All right. This is an area called the Palisades. I'm going to talk more about this. This will be more or less my 3rd book, I hope. This is California's most alpine area. We had taken this shot. Ben was with me on this one too, and we were lost, which was totally a common thing eventually. When you start going off trail and peak bagging like summits that really aren't summited that much, there's no real routes to these things. You sort of have to make them up on your own, or you have to follow maps. And I remember being right here by this little rock when it was dark when we made it to that point, probably 4 a.m. Everything seems to happen at 4 a.m. And we're arguing, me and Ben, we have snow falling around us. And we had climbed up this waterfall that was like totally like iced over in spots. And I'm like going like, how are we making it back down that thing? And I'm like, whatever, we'll worry about that later. And so we're talking, and he's saying, no, we need to climb that right there. I'm like, that ain't it, man. And I don't really want to do that. And I'm going, no, I think we need to go this way. At least I think that's what I said, because if I did, that would make me right. But so we ended up coming around this way. I don't even know where we were. Like I do now, but like, so I can guarantee we are the only photographers to ever take this shot, and it happened to be at a really incredible moment, which is good too. Because remember how I mentioned the cover shot of the book kind of was like a moment of hope for me. So was this, because we were getting dumped on of snow, and I'm like, dude, this needs to stop. Like, what are we doing? And like the storm started breaking around sunrise, and it was like, oh my gosh, light, yes. Uh, Felt a lot better after that. So fun time. All right. This is that same range. This was a summit we were going for that morning. This is the Palisade Range. This houses 14,000 foot peaks. Um, I've done most of them at this point. I'm working my way through them. But I'll show you a picture later. We stayed at the top of this guy right here. Actually was harnessed in, sleeping above this guy, which is quite the scene. Actually, the picture right behind Bruce right there is that sunrise shot from that summit. That's the Palisade Glacier. So taking shots and this is the range under moonlight. We had planned to shoot sunrise there, but we made it with time to spare. Can't believe that. So I ended up getting these shots under a full moon, kind of as sunrise was happening, plus the moon was still out. And it worked out to be a really incredible moment. This was both of these, actually, this one and this one were, I think Amazon had like, and USA Today had some competition, like 2016. It was like the US Landscape Photographer of the Year. These are both finalists for that competition. I didn't win, but anyway, enough of that. I do want to talk a little bit about just photographing where you are, and this is going to segue into the next book too. This is from a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, the rainbows make this special, but it's a special place. We were camping in like the June Lake area with my family, and when conditions change, I think you should just be ready to go out, right? Even if you're eating dinner or something like that, just move it. So we went out. I did. I'd be like, "Hey, babe, I'll be right back. I know you're cooking dinner for me. I'm gonna go shoot sunset." Like, all right. And so, but when you see like rainbow conditions kind of happen, just change your plans and go shoot them, because they only last for a moment. And these are some of those. Wherever you are, it can be an incredible moment wherever you are. These are more of these, like our campground and Saddlebag, just right where we were. Right. I didn't travel very far. We backpacked with the kids like a mile in, and then just spend the night, and then. And when incredible conditions happen, you get incredible images, no matter really how you shoot it. So just, again, stay flexible, keep a lookout for things like that, and know how to like look for weather and potential conditions for like rainbows and sunsets and things of that nature. And this is actually right where we were camped in our like trailer. Just some fishermen going out at sunset, and this tells the story of this lake. It's a Silver Lake. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, right on the June Lake Loop. But I love it. It's just a silhouette of some buddies going out and going fishing. All right. The World as I Remember It. This is this area. This is the latest book. And I want to talk about it in terms of those last images I was just sharing, kind of segue into this. Make the most of where you're at. Right? This is where we are. Like, you don't have to go to Hawaii or Yosemite to get amazing images. I'm going to prove that to you. Well, I'm going to try. You may not like my work, and that's okay. But I'm going to start with a cover shot again. And not as intense of a story behind this one as there was the other cover shot. I'd only been out for like an hour, not 9 days on this one. And these are like Crafton Hills, right? You guys all know where Crafton Hills area is, right? But it was the simplicity of it, right? These grasses are transitioning to summer on these slopes. There's a little bit of spring here, and just the typical like June type of fog going on below here. And I like the simplicity of it because it was just, we see it every day in our town, but do we really notice it? And it just kind of got me. It was like, wow, this is like a run-of-the-mill type of sunrise here, and it's gorgeous. Like, the goal of this book was for people around here to kind of open their eyes a little bit and understand what's 15 minutes away from their doorstep. So we'll keep moving on here. This is more Crafton Hills. This is looking down into Redlands, and at sunset. It was actually 4th of July, so I always think of it as a big firework right there. And then this is looking over Yucaipa to Yucaipa Ridge and San Bernardino Peak over there under a sunrise. Be aware of snakes in the summer. I'm sure you all know that, but yeah, they're there. That shot is right there as well. And this actually in the 2022 International Photography Awards, it didn't win anything, but it was part of the official selection. And I literally shot this from my backyard with a 400 millimeter, so it wasn't like that close to it. But the point of it is I saw this kind of developing. It was after a snowstorm had hit, and thought I'm going to do this. So I was telling somebody earlier, it was probably the first time Bryant Street was ever put on the international stage here in Yucaipa. So you know what? It just goes to show you that, like, literally, like, pay attention to conditions, where you're at, and you can make an amazing scene out of anything, to be quite honest. So, and this is more from my backyard. One is a pile of leaves, but they had a really cool color to them. It was persimmon trees, and I think they had frozen over a little bit and then kind of unfrozen. I don't know if that helped it. A technique I also use, this is a pistache tree, which is probably our best fall color in the area, in Southern California at least. We don't really have a lot of aspens here, but this sometimes what I'll do is when there's, like, right now would be a good time to do this. When there's barely enough light, I underexpose shots and everything kind of just fades to black, creating this really kind of abstract, very rich color type of image. It's a kind of fun way to try it. You don't need a tripod to it. You can just shoot handheld, super fast shutter speed. You don't have to use high ISO, and it's a cool way to get a different look to your stuff. Mill Creek, you know where that is? Right. So Highway 38 is actually running, like, right over there. You can see a little, oh, right up there, actually. You can see the little guardrails. This was a snowy sunrise. So yeah, I know there's, like, trash here a lot and, like, graffiti over the rocks, but when it snows, it looks like you're somewhere else. And I think you should capture those moments, right? And, like, savor those moments and inspire your town with those moments. This is 5 minutes from my house. It was not hard to get to, and just enjoy. These are more things from Mill Creek, up a little bit higher, not Mill Creek, but Momure Creek, which is up in Forest Falls under the Milky Way. I can talk a little about, if you guys want, technique for shooting some night and getting good depth of field that way. This is Galena Peak, which is the highest peak on Yucaipa Ridge. This is the beginnings of Vivian Creek, and the snow, obviously, and just some snow mounds because they're pretty. Actually, this right here, that's the back of this shirt. So it's kind of illustration based off the photograph. But again, those places are 15 minutes from my house. They're not hard to get to. It's right at the trailhead. You can go do it. Maybe not in a bunch of snow, but still, even without the snow, you can make something of it. This is South Fork Meadows. Have any of you guys ever hiked out of, like, Jinx Lake area in the South Fork region? Okay, yeah. So, Dry Lake Creek. Yeah, this is the Dry Lake drainage right here. So doesn't always happen. Dry Lake sometimes is dry. Actually, a lot. But these last couple of years, it's been full, which has been really cool to see. But this was drainage out of Dry Lake. And in fact, I invited my wife. This was our anniversary, our 13th anniversary. I had to think about it. And I said, hey, babe, why don't we go spend sunrise up at Dry Lake? And she was like, well, what does that mean? And I said, it means a 2 a.m. hike. So she was like, okay, fine. But we did it, and we ended up getting rained on. And I could tell you, like, I was hiking ahead of her, and I could feel the laser beams in the back of my neck. I'm like, I'm not looking back at her right now. Just keep going. But we arrived here to an incredible sunrise. And again, this wasn't where I wanted to shoot. I wanted to shoot at Dry Lake, but still, here the conditions are presenting themselves. Take what you can get. This was Dry Lake, obviously, when we did get up there. And we were the only ones there. Went through a lot of snow. This is Mount San Gorgonio right here. Jepson Peak is right over here, all covered in snow. So these are the North Chutes. In case you guys ever want to mountaineer up it, this would be where you would go in the winter. But just a beautiful moment to spend together. And this is 6 miles in. It's an alpine lake that we have right here in our mountains. And a lot of people don't even realize that. So lupin, a lot of these plants have been growing on our slopes now because of this. If you notice the trees, there's no pine needles on them. All right, we've had some fire problems, if you didn't know. And But one of the things that it has done is it allowed sun to come through on these slopes and create a ton of wildflowers that were never there before. They're allowing them to grow, and they'll eventually change and change and change over time until they become a tree again. So I don't know, I love this image, but then all the trees are dead in the back, so I'm not like, it's kind of like life and death in one image for me. I don't know what to make of it, but it's still a unique for the time, right? This is probably the first time in a lot of years that these kind of plants are growing in our mountains right now. Manzanita, this is another big plant that's in our mountains. Now, this did get burned up. This is on the San Bernardino Peak Trail. So this is no longer here. This actually kind of looks like a boneyard right now. I'm just being blunt. But it'll grow back eventually. But there are pockets of these all the way through the San Gorgonio Wilderness. Literally, it's a sea of green. If you guys have ever seen Manzanita under some low light, it is so vibrant. Like honestly, editing these photos, you kind of have to back it off a little bit because it just looks fake eventually. But it's quite the impressive display. So find some spots. Just go for a little hike in the San Gorgonio. You don't have to summit anything, but you'll eventually run into these pockets of Manzanita, and it's quite beautiful. El Dorado. You guys ever been? Oh yeah. There are bears. Yes, there are bears. You guys? I did encounter one. You heard that in the Sierra, but for the most part, I haven't been bugged by them. But yeah, it's a good thing to carry. Yeah, I do. By the way, real quick, because I do a lot of these local things alone, and I'm doing it at night a lot. So one of the deterrents I do is I grab my phone and I just play music out of it. So it kind of keeps me making a lot of noise without like talking to myself. Because you run into somebody and like, what's up with that guy? But it just lets the animals kind of know you're coming to stay away. You don't want to startle them. That's the biggest thing. So, but El Dorado Park, do you guys ever go there? This is our backyard, right? In Oak Glen, kind of borders Yucaipa and Oak Glen. I mean, this is like a 10-foot wide trail it doesn't have a whole lot of steep grades to it. You have plenty of room for rattlesnakes to like not jump out and bite your feet. So this is like kind of a gem, I feel like, where it hasn't really been photographed all that much. So this is sunset there. And this is all planned to be right now kind of wine country. So we'll see if it actually happens, but take advantage of the view right now before it changes. That was sunset there. We're going back to the San Gorgonio. Something got out of order. It's on me. Don't worry, not on you guys. Another lupine field under Yucaipa Ridge. So again, a lot of these little lupin slopes in the San Gorgonio Wilderness right now, more than ever before because of the fire damage. So more El Dorado, that's Yucaipa Ridge at sunset after a storm. And then this is, again, kind of adapting to your conditions. More El Dorado looking the other way towards Yucaipa Ridge, south slopes right here. But finding little puddles, things like this, where you can go ahead and just make the most of that particular moment in time, where it's a little bit different than just the run-of-the-mill shots you would get normally. And then when rainbows are out, man, just go shoot them. Like handheld, go run, go catch them before they disappear. All right, last section, and then I promise we'll be done. You guys doing it? You guys hanging in there? Doing okay? All right. All right. Palisades. I talked a little about this already, but I want to talk a little bit more about it. So that shot is back there. You saw it already. I've been hanging in a harness with two other guys, a girl and a guy, and we were probably the first people ever, at least on purpose, to spend the night on this summit. I'm going to show you the summit here in a second. This is looking the other way. This is another 14,000 foot peak called Mount Sill, and this is the Palisade Glacier. You see the Tarn and then lakes 2 and 1 down there, and it's all this sort of glacial color, really beautiful stuff. This was our summit that we slept on. Would you do it? Would you stand on top? No. I didn't. My friend stood on top. I just photographed him, but I did summit. But that's where we slept. So these become supporting images in many ways. And here's some more supporting images. So that's me terrified. This is where I was sleeping on this little cliff right here. And then I made my friend wake up at like 3 a.m. and I said, you got to summit this because the moon was going down and I want to get the Milky Way behind you on the summit. So I said, put your headlamp on. And I had Liz, she was belaying him. And I said, light up light paint the summit block. We'll get all this stuff done. So you only want to do that summit one time and then be done with it. So, but that's Starlight Peak is probably the most difficult 14er in the U.S. outside of Alaska. And to photograph it with those kind of conditions at sunrise, photograph it at night, all these types of things. It was just an incredible experience. So more supporting images. These are shot with like an iPhone basically at this point. But I think you learn again when you do your books the gaps that you've missed. And it was a lot of these storytelling images, right? The stuff we had to rig up to get up these rocks, just the overall like friendships that are being developed, telling that story behind all the shots. This is another Thunderbolt Peak. We traversed both of them, another 14er. We did them in the same day, just goofing around. These are shots in the backcountry as well. Any of you guys ever been a like Bishop Pass trailhead? Anything like that? So yeah, I was on a trail run one day, and that shot there's a print of it right there. It made me feel like I was in Iceland looking at some of these rivers. But I went and I was just on a quick run and I decided to go down towards Treasure Lakes. I'd never been down there before. And soon enough, I saw out of the corner of my eye sort of this lake bed, and it was not colored yet. It was just sort of this black kind of, it was early in the morning, didn't have any color to it. So that looks pretty cool. I'm going to go over to it. So I ran cross country over there. And then the peaks after sunrise started getting light on them and obviously reflecting down in here with the sky. Now, you can shoot a lake like that and it'd be fine, right? It's a good reflection. But seeing it in a river broken up by these like sort of this soil, it just made it look like it was lava flowing to a degree. It was kind of like looking at Horsetail Falls for the first time. So I ran back and I was showing people like, check out these raw images. Look at it. This isn't even color. I haven't even done anything. That they were like, dude, whatever. They weren't photographers. Man, you guys just don't get it. So, but that was an incredible moment of just discovering that. Again, staying flexible, staying open, taking risks. Oops. More details, supporting details of just the watercolor up there. This sort of just vibrant turquoise that kind of supports the whole area and it kind of is around the whole area. This was just an incredible moment. We had been dealing with the storm all day, and in fact, it stopped us from summiting. But coming back down, you could see kind of the aftermath of that storm kind of hitting east of us, and then the lakes down there. More of just the Palisades, the glacier. This is where we were camped. There's Starlight right up there, North Palisade right next to it. That's where we were, and just some close-ups and details of that. There's Ross just checking weather on a satellite phone. Unfortunately, the results came back not good. And then there's Palisade Glacier. So I was by myself on this one, and have any of you guys been to the Palisade Glacier? You may know it exists. This is California's largest glacier. Yeah, we got glaciers still, and it is this right here. It's changed over time, even for the last few years. It makes a lot of noise, and that was about 25 feet high. I couldn't get someone next to it to photograph. One, they probably wouldn't want to stand right next to it, and secondly, I didn't have anybody with me. But it was one of those moments where I had a snowstorm coming in, so I was trying to get the heck out of there and get my photograph at the same time. So, but beautiful. The color is incredible, and we have spots like this in California, and I don't think a lot of people know about it. So, hopefully, people will. All right, last topic, the business side. If you guys can get anything out of this, great. If not, then you can ask for your refund at the door. All right. I want to talk a little bit about some stuff I use. Kickstarter. I think you guys have heard of Kickstarter? Okay, so I funded both the books off of Kickstarter. It's a crowdfunding source, essentially, that it's not like a GoFundMe. People don't donate to this. They essentially offer them incentives. So things like they can say, oh, you pay me $60, I'll give you a book, right? Or $200, you get a limited edition book plus a little print. And then you go all the way up to like, I don't know, like $600, you get your name in the back of the book or something like that as a credit as part of it. And you kind of keep building these incentives from there. So people will purchase these incentives and they'll pledge the amount. And you have 30 days to make your amount. So the Sierra book, we made $41,000 off of Kickstarter in 30 days, which was awesome. It's a lot of work, but if you don't make your amount, like your goal amount, you don't get anything. So it's all or nothing, right? So if you're like $1 short, it doesn't matter. You don't get it. Everyone gets their money. So back. So it's kind of scary in that regard, but it is a ton of fun because people understand that you're up against the clock, they're up against the clock, and both campaigns have been successful. So for the books, if you guys are looking to make projects like that, whether it's video related or you just need capital, Kickstarter is a good way to go. Just have a plan ready. Have like local newspapers kind of ready to do your stuff. Have some videos ready for advertising for you guys, whatever it might be. And have a product kind of dialed in already so you can kind of sell it without it being completely done. So that would be my advice. But check it out. It's worked for me. It was a good way to raise capital. And both projects got done. So Smug Mug, I use this to sell prints. Maybe some of you guys use it too. This is a way to do it online, and they take care of it. They connect with Bay Photo, so I'm sure a lot of you guys use Bay Photo. That's where all those are from, and basically they take care of it all. You don't touch it. It's very hands off. So they take care of the ordering. The customer works with the lab. You just take the profit, take the money, and run. You know, we don't run, but hopefully they'll buy more. And then Shopify. So this is where I sell my products online, the book, shirts, all that kind of stuff. Shopify is great too because you can get like card readers from them and actually sell your physical products a little bit easier that way. So these are 3 things I would recommend looking into as photographers, as artists in general, that could help you out, either by raising capital, by selling stuff. It takes care of that process for you and allows you to just focus on the creative process. So good tools. And also a way to get your name out there would be competitions. I don't know how many of you enter competitions, but it's a good way to do it. All right. I'm starting a gallery in Yucaipa, in the uptown of Yucaipa. These are renderings. I actually think the actual gallery is looking nicer than this now. I've been working on it for a year, and I think we're going to open in 3 weeks or so. I'm working on final inspections with the city, but my Sierra book is in a store in Bishop, and I do want to just say, like, the importance of engaging with the physical is so much different than people looking at like a feed on their phone, right? My book is sold out. I've sent them like 50 books up there because it keeps selling out, which is awesome. But it's because they're actually holding it. They're looking through it. They're reading it. They're not distracted by ads scrolling through. It's a big difference. So I'm not saying go start a gallery. I know that's a pretty big endeavor. But what I am saying is figure out ways to get your work out there, whether it's prints, if you have books, great, and show it to people because oftentimes it sells itself. You don't have to really put much into it. You don't have to spin it in any way. And people are pretty, and they'll pay for it, right? Like these are all metal prints. And so they go for a higher price in the gallery, but I did open it one time. That's like a soft opening. And I would say, oh, you can get it cheaper if we do paper like this. And they'd be, no, I want that, right? And they were willing to pay that higher price for just because they see it right there in front of them. It's different than online. And I just recommend finding ways to get your physical products out there, whatever that is. And hopefully I can help with that with the gallery too. I hope to have other artists show stuff there, not just me. And hopefully it becomes a community thing. So we'll see. You can also offer art as a service. This is how I make a living. These books, all this kind of stuff, personal projects. I love it, but it does not pay the bills. But I am a contractor and I do design services, photography for organizations. And so one of the ways I don't know what your skills are, maybe only photography, and that's okay too, but offer it as a service, whether that's weddings. It often comes with a headache, right? Like, I don't know if you I've never photographed a wedding because I just don't want that headache. And I would be no good at it either. I mean, look at that mountain back there. But the point is, if you're able to service somebody specifically with their needs with your art, that is really where you could make money in this business. I won't go too far into this. These are just services that I offer. I'm not selling you guys on anything. I'm just telling you these are ways that I make money. And if you can steal any of these, do it. So I do web and app design, print design, all this kind of work for companies, photography, and they pay a lot of money for their stuff to look good. And it does come with a headache, though, and it comes with a lot of back and forth with people. But that's just part of the. I think this is one of my favorite musicians, Rich Mullins, said, how some of the best art is done. What inspires some of the best art? And he said bills, and I think he was right when he said it. Yeah. And then I do pricing models. So again, if you can take anything from this, take it. I'm sorry if it just doesn't apply to you, but I'm really trying to meet you where you're at. But you can do hourly rates. That hasn't worked out for me in the past too much, because sometimes if you do a good job and you finish quickly, then you get paid less and you're kind of punished for being efficient with your work. I do retainers with companies. That is kind of where I'm landing these days. But just be careful, because sometimes your guy managing that will say, well, you only did X amount of work. Why am I paying you this much? And you're going to say, well, because I did double the work for you last month. And it kind of goes that way sometimes. And then subscription is a way where people can turn it off and on as they need you. That's how I was operating, but that became pretty hard to manage because you didn't know when they were going to do it. And you can bury yourself pretty quickly in work. So just things to think about if you do intend to offer any art as a service. All right, and then have a mission statement. This is you don't need to take mine. This is mine. Take it or leave it. I don't care. It's it goes back to my spiritual beginnings. But this allows me to have something to go back to and make sure that everything checks out with what I'm doing. That my work is true to what I believe, and that it's making a difference in my mission. And I don't care if your mission's the exact opposite of this or just something different, but have something greater than yourself that you can go back to and check yourself with, and just write it. No one needs to write it for you. It's your thing. And it forces you to think about what it is you want to do, where it is you want to make an impact with your work. And this was probably a very important thing for me. That became the driver of everything, is just having that mission statement and making sure that I understood always what the goal was of everything, because it brings clarity to your work. It brings focus to your schedule and all that kind of stuff. So if you take one thing away, hopefully you got some entertaining stories, but make your mission statement if you haven't already. I would write that no matter where you are in your career. Lastly, I always think it's like super cliche to close with a quote, but I'm going to do it anyway. This is by Clyde Kilby. He was a C.S. Lewis scholar, and he ended up writing these like 10 tips for like mental health. And I think this was like number 6, but I loved it. I'm super skeptical about things in life. I doubt a lot. But one of the things that I loved, and I think if we just take moments to do this throughout our day, it helps us. It reminds us as artists that of a bigger picture of something that like we can get back to our mission at hand. I shall open my eyes and ears. Once a day, I shall simply stare at a tree, a flower, a cloud, or a person. I shall not then be concerned at all to ask what they are, but simply glad that they are. I shall joyfully allow them the mystery of what Lewis calls their divine, magical, terrifying, and ecstatic existence. Just be happy it's there. I wouldn't stare at a person for that long. That could get a little awkward. But stare at a tree, right? Like take a break from your phone, take a break from your screens, and just go stare at a mountain or a tree for a minute. And I think you'll feel fairly renewed by it. So guys, like I said, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it very much. Thanks. Sure. Yeah. If you guys have questions, I don't know if anybody has questions.
Yes, some Q&A. Russ, now, when Russ or whenever but anybody asks the question, if you wouldn't mind repeating it for our Zoom listeners.
Oh, sure.
Okay. My question is, when you go on these midnight hikes, you take one of those emergency 911 beacons with you.
I do.
So if you fall or hurt yourself, you might find it someday.
Yes. So the question.
And did your wife ever sit in on any of these discussions that you have? Knowing that you go off and do these things.
Well, I don't know if she's watching, so I don't know if I want to repeat the question. No. The question was, do I carry an emergency beacon with me on my climbs and hikes? And does my wife know about these things that I do? The first part of the question, yes. I do carry. Spot is a service that offers like a monthly subscription to these types of beacons. They've gotten more advanced. You can send text messages through them. You can do more than just alert, search, and rescue of your coordinates. But yes, I do carry that. You got to check the batteries in them. I forget to do that sometimes. Yes, and my wife is well aware of these. And I tell you these stories, but she knows she trusts my decision making. Anybody else? Yeah.
I have I keep like a bucket list, a visual bucket list, where I take pictures of things. So I wanted to get a picture of Cathedral Peak, and the second image on Google Images is yours.
Oh, right.
So you're really famous.
I made. Did everyone hear that? I'm the second image of Cathedral Peak on Google. That's what she was commenting on. I made it. I made it. Thank you.
Josh, we have a question from our Zoom
Oh,
listener.
yeah.
Emmy's asking, what is the trail in Oak Glen that you were referring to?
The El Dorado.
The El Dorado Trail?
It's there's a parking lot up there, and but it's off of Oakland Road. El Dorado, is it State Park or is it Ranch? El Dorado State Park, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Where they had the fire.
Yes, where they had the fire. Yeah, don't light any matches in the area, but it's quite dry. Yes. Anybody? I'm happy to answer questions about technique too. If you have Photoshop questions or printing. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So currently it's right over here. I carry 3 lenses with me normally, and it's heavy. So I have a 80 to 400 lens, and right now I'm shooting a Nikon D850. I will probably go mirrorless with the next purchase when that happens. But still, I think it's a great camera to use. And then I have a 24 to 70. This is a second generation of this lens, and this has always been one of Nikon's like bread and butter lenses. But the thing I love about this one is that the vibration reduction works really well on it. So when I'm in low light, which is all the time, and I don't really feel like stopping and setting up a tripod, I can usually get a quarter second out of this at like 50 millimeters without any camera shake. So, which allows for like, if I'm photographing water or something like that, to still get some nice sharp shots without having to put a tripod there. And then I use a 14 to 24 wide angle from Nikon. This has been their go-to wide angle for probably 20 years now. I have a polarizing kit for it. So this is a polarizer that fits over the lens. It's a special kind of build for this particular lens. But yeah, that's pretty much my kit. And then I do use this tripod. This is a lightweight tripod, but it'll hold all this stuff. Slick is the name of it. Carbon fiber tripod. I use Manfrotto ball head. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Anybody else have a question? Yeah.
I'm almost embarrassed to ask. It's like asking an artist, well, what kind of brush did you use to paint that? But it was about technique. And do you always use a polarizing filter? Or do you use an enhancing filter or anything like that? And the colors are fantastic. Photoshop.
Well, I polarize almost everything, though. I do. I run with a polarizer pretty much 100% of the time.
It's almost important to have a polarizer lens as the camera.
Yeah.
That's what I learned from him.
That's what I learned from him. It does help. It does intensify the colors. When you wear sunglasses, obviously they're polarized, so you see the difference. And in terms of Photoshop editing, I really don't add a lot of vibrance, if any, to my shots. That'll naturally come through if you begin to add contrast to your work. Vibrance and intensity of color will increase as well. And so I really try to stay away from saturation and vibrance channels and just let the contrast intensify any color. I was talking to somebody earlier too. I do use a technique, it's called lumosity masking. You can look it up. But essentially what it does is it allows you to select shadows of very similar depth and then highlights as well. And you can edit those as like separate parts of the images, but you can edit them all relative to each other. So, you're not like lighting up the foreground way lighter than it should be. It kind of keeps everything honest still.
What was the name of
Lumosity masking. Yeah, and it's a Photoshop technique. Just try to remember that, and you can look it up and kind of see how they do it. But that is a way I bring out stuff in shadows, and it's a fine, you got to fine tune it, right? Ultimately, I edit it until I think it looks right, and that's the bottom line. And a lot of that is, I may add contrast, and then I'll take it away, and then when I add it again, I'm gonna take it, and I fine tune these details to that level until I feel like it's there. So, and then I go back and I mess with it like a year later again. I'm like, oh man. So, yeah. Anybody else have questions?
So are most of your images single shots, stacked?
Yeah,
Or
they are single shots. Yeah. So I try to photograph in a very flat profile where the color, it'll lose some of the intensity, some of the contrast, but it allows you kind of the best editing of a raw file at that point where you can do the most with it. And it depends. It just depends. You got to know your equipment well in terms of like, I know if I shoot with the 24-70, if I have overexposed highlights, it's going to be hard to get rid of those. So sometimes I'll underexpose and know that I can bring it out of the foreground. But it is single shot, but I do layer mask. So in Photoshop, if any of you are familiar with layer masking, where it's essentially like a post-processing ND grad filter, essentially. So where you have like a light to dark filter in front of your lens, essentially I'll pull those techniques off in post-processing. So yeah. Anybody else? Yeah. Camera raw and Photoshop. I mean, Lightroom, I don't use Lightroom anymore just because I'm not that organized. I'm terrible at it. But Lightroom essentially and Camera Raw, I feel like are the same type of thing, but I like to edit an image more than like a group of images, I guess. And actually, not to your question, not all my stuff is single shot. That shot right there, the one with the Milky Way under or over Lake 2 and on the North Fork, right here. You have this kind of like glacier looking lake here. That was like a double image that I had light painted and then shot the Milky Way separate. So yeah, I did like a 5-minute exposure on the foreground and then, a 30-second exposure on the Milky Way. So yeah.
Well, let's hear it for Josh. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Josh, you've got
What's up?
some books available for sale. You've got
Yeah,
some prints.
whatever.
If anyone wants to
Well, the prints aren't really for sale. I mean, I guess you can, whatever. If you want to buy one, let me know. But like, these are going to go up in my gallery eventually, but I can reorder if you want something. But books are definitely for sale. Don't feel any pressure. But just go by and enjoy them. I'm not going to, you can just look at them. Like, if you want to buy them, let me know. No problem. But yeah,
I'm sure he'll sign it for you.
I will too. Yes.
Thanks
I
so
will
much.
sign it.
Great seeing you.
Thank you, guys.
Russ had a question. He had put up a sign on the way in. What was your question?
On my personal page, I put up a banner saying Redlands Camera Club on the brick on the front. How many of you saw that?
Yeah. I did.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad. You like it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious. We used it when we.
It worked.
A lot of people didn't sign in.
Okay. I'll get that. Okay. And if you didn't sign in, make sure you see Stephanie. Terrific. Thanks so much.